introduction or something, and then I can kind of take from there.
We are live right now, so we will give you a short introduction and I'll give you a question there. So. Okay, so we're just waiting for the viewers to join. Raj, did it start in Facebook?
Yeah, I'm seeing it actually, but it looks like it did not.
Okay. Okay, yeah, it's in Facebook. So it will take
live video is not starting.
people to join in. So once when we join in, I think it should be fine.
Has the live video started, Kiran? Because I don't see a live video in your feed.
Okay, yeah. It is already started. The people are joining.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, people are joining. Hi, PV. I think notification, Paula, Raj.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to see. But there is no live relay in your feed also. I'm not able to start a watch party as well. Because there is very limited. Mostly it's from YouTube. In FB, there is no one joined actually.
We have YouTube. Yes, we have people joining. Yeah, so I think we are getting the numbers slowly. I think we should get it. PV has already started a watch party, so I think we'll be fine. Raj, ungala panna mudiyada?
I'm checking actually. You can. I think we can start. Kiran,
Okay, we can
about,
start. I mean,
people are joining.
Raj, just
just
give him a short introduction. I think we can start with the session, and I'll see what is happening.
Okay, sure. So, hi guys. So today we have Mr. Rafael Weigel. So he's internationally renowned fashion, commercial, as well as a headshot photographer. So we kind of approached him that whether he can do a session specifically on headshot because he specializes in that, and we have seen his work. It's very good actually. It's a very inspiring work, whatever he does. So he'll be taking you through a little bit into headshot photography. Maybe based on questions, he'll just we can just dwell deeper into whatever questions you have. Like you can ask about what's how to set up headshots, what's the lighting, what sort of background you choose, or anything. It can be anything. So let him give a brief introduction of himself again. It would be better if it comes from him again, and let him start talking about what's actually the essence of headshot photography. Over to you, Rafael.
Perfect. So now I can take over. So I don't see how many people is watching, but I just want to say hello to everybody. Thank you for joining. This is like my pleasure to kind of be of part of this little um, streaming and podcast, whatever you want to call it. So before I jump into the entire headshot photography, I'm just gonna share a little bit about myself, because this is something which I think is also kind of tells you a little bit how I even got into the headshot photography. So prior, I was shooting primarily headshots. I was shooting weddings. That was my kind of like primary job, and this is what I was like focusing on. And I've been shooting wedding for over 10 years, so it's been a while. Only natural light. I didn't work with strobes or speed lights. Speed lights were just kind of something where I was using mostly during the reception, but was pretty much on the camera. Was never off my camera. And at some point, I basically, the wedding industry got really saturated in Canada, and basically, I kind of start feeling that this business for me is not going nowhere, but was like really decline. I was shooting less weddings. There's like everyone become this wedding photographer, so I really want to stay in this industry, and I really want to kind of be part of it. But I felt like I have to find something else, because this wedding industry is getting so saturated that it's going to be really, really hard to find the clients. So I tried to kind of separate myself a little bit and do something a little bit different. So that's when I actually kind of started doing a little bit of research, and then what is available, what photographers are shooting. And headshots was one of those things which was really lacking. Like there's not too many headshot per se photographers in Calgary. So I was like, what, this is something which could be some kind of niche and some new potential for me. And that's why I slowly started kind of transition myself into the headshot photography. And the interesting part of this, it wasn't even easy process, because it seems like, oh well, photography is a photography, but shooting weddings and then shooting headshots is completely two different stories. And I have to say that it was quite interesting progress for me, because I basically knew nothing about headshots. I knew nothing about lighting. I knew nothing about off-camera flash. All this studio stuff was completely new for me, and I basically had to learn this whole thing. But I got some interesting. So I can hear myself right now. There's some echo coming in. Right.
Yeah, it should be fine.
Okay, so basically, I had to basically start learning this stuff. The amazing thing nowadays is that we can definitely get the knowledge from internet. There's YouTube, there is other photographers, there's workshops, there are tutorials, there's tons of stuff we can access nowadays to learn those stuff. We don't have to go to any particular school. This whole thing is pretty much available online. And back in the days when I started shooting headshots, there was not much, being quite honest. There's a couple courses, there was like, a couple books which you could kind of get hand on, and then that was pretty much everything. So I basically, this is kind of something what I also want to share before I jump into more details. I know whenever you're running the business, a lot of photographers are like, oh, I'm not going to do stuff for free. I'm not going to basically, work for nothing. But what I would like to share, and this is what I would like to kind of encourage a lot of people to, if you're getting into this, photography business, and if you, let's say you decided to shoot headshots, I would highly recommend it to do a lot of sessions. Get at the front of your camera wherever you can, your kids, your neighbors, your wife, your spouse, your boyfriend, girl, whoever you can, so you can practice, because the more you practice, the more you do those shoots, the better you get. And the process kind of takes time. I know the beginning also, it's not really easy, because there's a lot of frustration. There's always things which they don't work, but that's how we learn. If I would show you my first shots I've done, like, you guys probably would laugh, because they're so bad. Whenever I look at them, like, how the hell I could even create something like this? It was so bad. But that's the process. Like, you need to learn, you need to practice, you need to see what works, what doesn't work. And also, there is no, I would say, clear recipe about how to shoot headshots, because I found headshots, those are very personal sessions where you kind of have to interact with the person. You have to interact with your subject. Every person is different, so like you can have someone who is very shy, then you might have someone who is very open, someone who is very, I would say, like doesn't have any problems being at the front of the camera. But in headshots photography, I found most people, they're very shy. It takes a little bit of time to warm them up and then kind of get into them. And then you have to create, I would say, specific environment where you can simply, kind of get them into the specific mood where you can kind of get those, kind of interesting face expressions, get them kind of like, look approachable, make them look interesting. Plus, on the top of that, we're going to talk a little bit more about some technical parts of it, and we're going to kind of break this entire process into like small pieces. So this was kind of like the first, just to kind of give you an idea, because a lot of people kind of have a hard time to believe that. For the first 3 years, when I started shooting weddings, I was shooting headshots, I was doing everything for free. Didn't charge a penny. Basically, I was trying to practice, learn the craft, kind of, have better understanding of this entire process. So when I start charging people, I knew what I'm doing, and I didn't have to kind of guess things. I didn't have to, do things which I'm not sure about it. Especially, I found with headshots, like you need to be able to repeat the process. So it's not like, you have one successful session and then you have 5 kind of sessions which didn't work, because if you spread out the word, like you have no idea what you're doing, it's really kind of difficult to build that up again. So you need to kind of make sure to kind of be able to produce something which is at least decent. Another thing what I want to kind of share with you guys, which is also extremely important, and this is what I've learned from weddings. One of those things is I don't own a studio. Like I just don't have it. It's really expensive, especially in Canada, to own any kind of type of location. The rent is insanely high. Plus, you have to have certain traffic through the doors, so you're going to be able to not only pay the rent but also pay some other expenses, right? So my approach was pretty much to shooting either at my location, like my home, my apartment, or shooting at like client location. And I have to tell you that from one hand, it was really frustrating at the beginning, and I have to share with you guys that whenever I was going to new location, it was like, okay, how the hell I'm gonna make this work? And people were coming up with different locations, like shooting in the park, shooting in their backyard, shooting in their living room, shooting in some offices, shooting in the hallways, shooting in some lobbies, like you just name it. I was shooting those locations. But what was quite interesting, and what was quite I would say beneficial for me, that shooting in those different locations kind of allow me to be able to shoot anywhere, plus my creative part of my brain started kind of developing, so I could make any location looks good. And I think this is what I've learned from weddings. That was a big thing, because as you guys probably know, and a lot of you guys probably shoot weddings, there's no kind of, you cannot predict where you're going to be shooting, and you have to adapt yourself to specific locations, and you have to learn how to deal with them, how to work with them, how to make them look interesting. And this is the same applied to headshot photography, and this is what I do. I found that people who are shooting headshots in studio, like own studio, they're getting very, I would say, like they're not as creative, because they have this particular setup, it's working, and they can repeat this all the time. And basically this creativity is going out of the window, right? Because they don't want to try, right? Like why would they? But shooting in different locations kind of force you to pretty much just be creative. Like you have to figure it out how to make this work. And I remember when I started going to those different locations, was extremely difficult, because there's tight locations. Sometimes they're crowded, they're messy, they're like not interesting. But also what I found, and this is something extremely important, and this is what I said a few minutes ago about creating a specific mood to, I would say, shoot the headshots, because a lot of people take this very personally, and it's like a big deal for them to have a headshots done. And you basically they opening up all their insecurities, right? Like especially women, I found, like shooting women, it's very personal stuff. And I think because you're focusing on the face, you're focusing on, that's what is, I would say, the most important in their body. That's where, the things kind of getting kind of a little bit personal, and people sometimes have a hard time to open up. And shooting in those private locations, their homes, I found those shoots always looked better because they were in their own environment. Like they felt secure. They felt like, okay, this is my place. I can open up. They always have access to their wardrobe. They can change, they can adjust, right? So I found this is working way better. And then whenever I was shooting in like some particular, like I had some sessions where I was shooting in the studio for some commercial work, I found that those locations, they were always hard because people were coming in. There was like strange environment. There's tons of lights. There's, different place. And for them to open up to you, that was taking way more time, right? So I really sometimes prefer to shoot at the locations, at the client location, because it's always works better. So moving forward, what I want to say, and this is going to be probably the main message of this conversation which I'm having with you guys, is that we're going to kind of break down this entire process about shooting headshots, because there are specific things which people focus on, and they're missing out a bunch of other factors, and that's why they're lacking with the quality of their work. And I know it's easy to say for some of those things, but I have to say that it took me years and years to figure this whole thing out. And then when I start realizing, okay, there's other components in this entire process which are extremely important, and I was lacking of them, and that's why my work was like mediocre. And then that's why, like I couldn't really pass this kind of like level to kind of do some amazing work. And then when I started kind of like, okay, this is where my work is lacking, I would start like basically implementing those things, and then I could see right away that my work is just basically is taking off and it's better and stuff. So we're going to break this entire process, and I'm going to actually share with you guys. I'm going to basically send to the moderators I will try to maybe do some screenshots too of this thing, but I'm going to give it to you, this entire breakdown of this entire process, so you guys are going to be able to basically see what it takes. And I'm going to start with the most obvious stuff, and then we're going to kind of go to more like less important things, but they also extremely important. So let's start with the gear. And I'm not going to be talking much about it. There's a couple things which are extremely important when it comes to the gear. But I want to start with saying that the gear is something which is, I would say, something which we shouldn't worry too much. And most of the questions I've been getting from a lot of people is like, hey, like what kind of camera do you use? Like why you like what kind of lighting do you use, or what kind of like speed lights do you have? And they a lot of people think that if you're going to get this high-end equipment, then you basically, let me kind of close this for now. Whenever you're going to have this, high top of the line equipment, this is what's going to make you better photographer. And I'm kind of the example which I would say update my camera for the last 7 years. I still shooting my Nikon D800, which is kind of like older camera. I'm still using speed lights from Nikon, which are Nikon SB800, which is also like, I think they're like 10 years old. I'm using Pocket Wizards, which are another like 6-7 years. I'm using my Elinchrom Deep Octas, which is about like 80 years, and they just keep kicking with all this stuff what I do. And like I'm not trying to focus too much about it, because we like when it comes to the headshots, I work in very I have to say, controlled environment, because when I set up my lights, I have everything kind of like, set it up. I have a full control of the lighting. I have full control of, all those little kind of technical things. And you really don't need high-end equipment, because you can create this stuff with I would say average, or starting, or like entry level cameras, because you working in the very controlled environment. Like you don't need fast focusing, which is like another thing. People are like, okay, you need to have fast, like your focusing system has to be really good. But if you really think about it, you have someone who is just sitting at the front of you. They don't run, they don't move, they don't jump, they don't kind of like miles away from you. So like, why do you need like fast focusing system? You don't. You just focus on their eyes and you're good to go, right? So this is not something important. But a lot of people, whenever they purchasing the cameras, they go to the store, and all these guys, who are trying to sell you stuff, they giving you all these rings and bells, which you don't really need. So like, that's something which like you have to kind of understand first what this camera is used for, what is important for you, and like there's a things which they're going to try to sell you, which means absolutely nothing. You're probably never going to use it, right? So this is something which is extremely important. The second thing, what I want to mention here, is the lens. So lens is very, very crucial. I highly recommend something which is at least 135 millimeters up to 200, because that's where you get really nice compression of the background, and that's where you're getting this nice bokeh, and you can like basically compress the image, so the effects of the backgrounds, they're really interesting. So I'm going to stop here for a second, and I'm going to kind of tell you a little story, which also kind of gives you like a little kind of background story, that you don't have to spend tons of money even on the lens. So the lens I'm using, it's a Nikon 7200 VR2, so it's not like the top of the line, but it's still very expensive. It's about $2,000 lens. If you want to get like the used one, the new ones are I think around 4K. So it's extremely important. But a couple years ago, I went back to Poland. That's where I'm originally from. And my wife's grandfather, he's also a photographer. And he had this, I think it was 8200 lens from Nikon, which was vintage. The lens was about 40 years old, was push and pull. I don't know if you guys remember those lenses. They were made in, I don't know, 70s or something like this, like really old stuff. And I was like, you know what, would you mind if I could just kind of borrow this lens for one shoot, and then I'll see how this whole thing performs. So I put this whole thing on my Nikon D800, which I said it's like, not also brand new camera. And this lens was 40 years old, believe it or not. And the stuff, what I got from it, like you wouldn't believe. I'm going to show you. I think I have somewhere the images here. Shoot. I don't have this on my website. Hold on. Do I have it or not? But anyways, I don't have it on my website. I thought I have it, but I can also send them to you. But I was just blown away, because you technically couldn't see the difference between those lenses, which from the images from the lens what I have from that 40 years old lens, right? If you go on eBay, you can get this lens for about $250. Like you have to look, it's not damaged or anything like that. But if you can find something, if some decent condition, like you're golden. Like you're gonna get stuff. And this lens was so sharp, like I was just shocked. Like I was just like, oh my God, this is just unbelievable that this $200 lens can produce such a stunning images, right? So that was another, I would say, learning curve for me, that you back in the days, there were really good photography equipment, and you can really use them, and they still good, and then you don't really need to spend thousands of dollars on something which will give you some good results, but it's not going to give you upscale to the point you're going to see the difference with the quality image, right? So let's talk about, this is the equipment, right? So the camera, the main reason I'm using it because is the pixel count, because I like to retouch my images, so I have a little bit of ability to kind of dive deeper into some pixels and kind of do a little bit better retouching. But this is the only reason. I'm probably, if this is gonna kind of go out or breaks or something like this, I'm gonna probably stick to Nikon D800. I absolutely love this body, but the same applies to Canon or Sony. You don't really have to go top of the line because it's not going to make a huge difference, and you're just going to waste money on something which, especially I think at the beginning when you're starting off and you don't have, I would say, kind of solid income coming in from your shoots, kind of putting yourself into debt and then kind of spending thousands of dollars on something which not going to give you the results, I think is just pointless, right? And a lot of photographers make that mistake, and they struggle, and they kind of fight for living because they fought or they got convinced by some, I don't want to, sorry for my language, idiots, that you need this best cameras, right? So get average and spend more time on shooting and practicing than actually kind of focusing which gear you need, right? And I know most of you guys heard that a million times, but I'm repeating this all the time because I teach headshots, so I do a bunch of workshops all over Canada and United States, and this is one of the biggest issues I've seen, that people kind of think that the equipment's going to make huge difference in their work, but it's not. And as soon as you realize that, and as soon as you kind of put this in your head, the game is changing, and you're going to be better off kind of like doing with the stuff what you have. Okay, so this is the gear. I'm going to kind of give you, and I'll send you my entire list of the equipment what I use, and you guys can kind of go through it, see what I use. And as I said, I've been using this for years now. I'm not planning much to basically change anything. Okay, so let's jump to the next thing, and I actually want to talk about things. So I have like 10 different components of getting your headshots better. And the one thing what I would like to suggest, again, I'm going to send you the kind of screenshot or image where all these things are listed, so you guys can have kind of look at those. And the one thing what I would recommend you guys to do is to go through that list and see which of those components you're lacking, which components you're not looking after, or which things you never thought like it's important. And as soon as you're kind of going to figure this whole thing out, you guys can pretty much kind of focus on those little things and then kind of start implementing them into your headshot photography, and then you will see massive difference. So maybe what we can do this kind of screenshot of all this thing here. So basically, those are the things which I always look forward. So equipment, and this is, we talk a little bit about it. I didn't put in the list because I think is just, of course, if you're a headshot photographer or photographer, you have it equipment. So the first thing is makeup, and I'm going to kind of talk about it a little bit, and then we're going to go to the next thing and the next thing. So makeup, I found, is, especially for headshots, is something which is extremely important, because it gives you two things. First of all, makes your retouching easier. Second of all, makes person looks better, especially, for people who have some issues with the skin, or they have some discolorations, or they have pimples, or they have scars, or, the list goes on. And there's nobody on this planet who has perfect skin. So this is something which is extremely important. And let me kind of show you one more thing here. I'm going to jump into and I'm going to kind of show you one thing here. Okay, I should have that. Okay, here. So I'm going to kind of show you two files. Let me take that here. So this is actually before the shoot. So you guys can see those three girls, and they very, very young, you know, kind of, we're talking about they're in the 20s. And this is actually before the makeup. So they came for the photo shoot, and then we kind of took the photo of them. And basically that's the way they looked before the session. So then if I would take them, you know, and shoot them this way, they of course I could just do some, you know, retouching, make their skin looks better and all this stuff. But, you know, the makeup always kind of can highlight it, a lot of those features. You know, they can do, the makeup artist can do contouring to their face, and this is how they look after the makeup. So those are the same girls. So that was before, and this is after. So massive difference, right? And that's always, I never thought about it, honestly. I was shooting, you know, a lot of headshots, and there was something I was like, oh my God, you know, like, why, you know, all this other photographers, they creating such a great work, and then my work looks the way it looks. And makeup was you know, one of those things which makes huge difference, right? So you have to find some good makeup artists which gonna, you know, help you big time. I know in India, you guys have one of the top makeup artists on the world, and then I know, you know, the stuff what you guys doing over there, it's amazing. I personally had a chance to be and shoot 2 weddings in India, so I've seen what they were able to pull off was just out of this world. So if you're a headshot photographer, you can definitely apply this to your work, right? So this is gonna definitely take your work to another level. So the next thing is the hairstyling. This is something which, you know, the same thing as makeup, it's gonna kind of makes person looks better. If you have someone, you know, coming into the photo shoot, and you know they have, you know, kind of hair which all over the place, and then they not smooth, they not kind of properly styled, you know, it's gonna looks better. As soon as you kind of take this to another level, it's gonna definitely kind of bring this your images to the better quality, right? Okay, complementary wardrobe, the same thing, you know. Usually what I ask people, and this is something what probably we also learn as a photographer, something what looks good sometimes doesn't photograph well. And this is something what sometimes we also have to be very cautious about, that, you know, certain clothing, it's basically, it's not gonna help much. I always ask my clients to bring at least 3 to 5, even more, sometimes different outfits, so we can try new things and kind of like, you know, basically, you know, see what photographs well. And I also learn over the years that, you know, if someone has clothing they feel confident about or they feel good about, also kind of brings this completely different, I would say, attitude, and they like, because they feel better, automatically they photograph better, right? So this is something which also is like a not only visual component but also psychological component to photo shoot, that, you know, the person feels more confident because they have a good outfit, and or they have a good suit, or, you know, whatever, right? So don't kind of limit your clients to one outfit and that's it. Kind of like let them change. And also what I do for my headshot session, whenever I feel that, you know, the person is getting stressed out, or, you know, they kind of like getting, I don't say bored, but, you know, they kind of like start feeling uncomfortable, this is the best way to also break down the photo shoot and tell them like, hey, go and change, and then, you know, we'll try to do something different. So you can use that as some kind of intermission throughout a photo shoot, and then help them to kind of feel better, and then, you know, make them a little bit more relaxed, take their mind off the photo shoot, so they can kind of do something different. Okay, so the next one is, so now we're going to go into more serious stuff. So next one is lighting, and I'm going to touch this, but I would preferably do another little conversation, and we're going to focus fully on this. But I use basically 2 type of lightings. One of them is clamshell lighting, so it's like, you know, you have one main light on the top of the person's head, 45 degrees down. Then you have reflector, and then you have the kicker light on the side, and then you have third light for the background. And all my shoots, I'm shooting with 3 speed lights: main light, kicker light, and the background light. And I'm going to touch this a little bit. I'm using the Elinchrom Deep Octa 39 inches diameter. And the one thing, there's couple things what I want to say. The first thing, the bigger source of light you're going to have for your main light, you're going to get better results, because I started with like little tiny softbox, and I was struggling big time because the light didn't wrap the face properly. And I was struggling this for like literally months and months and months. And then I talked to one of my mentors, and I'm like, hey, like, what the hell is going on? Like, I'm not getting the results. There's something not right. And he's like, so tell me a little bit about what you have and how you shoot. And he's like, man, change the main light to bigger softbox, because then you're gonna get better results. And that was just day and night. So I think 37 inches diameter is the minimum. The bigger you get, you're gonna get better results, because then, as I said, the light's gonna wrap the face really nicely, and then you're gonna get this much softer light, and you're gonna be able also to control this a little bit better. So that's what I would highly recommend. The kicker light doesn't really matter. You can use some grid on it, or you can kind of have another small softbox to get this nice separation from the background. And then the next thing what I want to talk about is the light for the background. And this is actually I'm gonna stop here for a few minutes, because I'm gonna share with you guys some little tricks and some techniques what I'm using. And you guys probably know I'm kind of known for all this colorful backgrounds with different colors, different kind of bokehs and all this kind of stuff. So usually what I do, and this is something also what I discovered accidentally, I've been having those gels, which they've been sitting basically in my closet for years. Like, someone gave it to me. I didn't buy it. Someone gave it to me, and basically they were sitting. And one day I'm like, oh, I'm going to take those and basically use them. And then, even crappy location, you can turn into something amazing, because you can put nice, interesting gel on the speed light, and you can fill up the room with this nice different tone. Or if you want to be more creative, you can actually put, let's say, 2 gels to split the colors and have, let's say, 2 separate different colors, which is going to add another kind of dimension to your photo shoot. So one thing what I also want to share with you guys, because those gels, they about $40 Canadian, so it's fairly expensive. But I'll share you guys with tip what you guys can do for literally zero money. So because I was having this like one solid color, right? Like those gels, they don't come into some different colors. So what I kind of come up with, and this is something which is really interesting, I'm going to show it with you. So basically, you can get any plastic, so any plastic wrap, which is kind of see-through, clear, and you can actually cut it out to whatever size you want. So I cut it out to those original gels. And you can pretty much use Sharpies to paint over this, and you can create different patterns for the gel. So this is it's painted over, so you guys can see there's different colors. And you can put on the speed light, and basically you're good to go. You can shoot the light off some kind of reflective surface, and you pretty much creating some interesting backgrounds. So it's cheap. You can customize it. If you I got this bunch of Sharpies for I think few dollars in a dollar store, and you're golden. You can create multiple different colors, different patterns. You can mix colors. You can create, like, the sky is the limit, right? So this is something which is I think extremely useful. It's cheap, and you can really create something very unique and something very special, and something kind of like which you can kind of customize to each client. So this is what I've started to doing, and I've been getting some amazing results. So really simple, very, very kind of easy way, and then you can have own custom made gels, which gonna, you can do them for like, you can create like honestly some amazing stuff. So this is when it comes to the lighting. Again, I would love to do another one where we can kind of focus on this specifically, because this topic is another, I would say, few hours of chatting. And we can kind of really dive into this, and then I can tell you a million other stuff what you guys can do for very inexpensive way to create something very, very interesting. Okay, so let's jump into the next thing, and posing. So this is something which also is extremely, I think, important, and something that you guys have to master. There's a couple things which I would like to share with you guys. First of all, you want to make sure that the person is engaging with you with the posing. So don't kind of like put person at the front of the camera, ask them to stand and just kind of look at you, because you're going to get like basically awkward face expressions. You're going to get like, awkward posing. Usually what I'm trying to do is try to work with the person, make sure they're moving all the time, change them, adjust them, ask them to lean forward, ask them lean to the side. Like, just the more they move, the more they kind of do different things, the more natural they become. So I know we have this, I would say, approach that because we have so many things we have to think about it throughout the photo shoot. And then, some of us, and I remember when I started shooting headshots, like my main concern was always the lighting. Oh, I have to make sure the lighting is right. But try to actually, as I said, practice a lot. So when you get and you set it up your lighting and you're getting good stuff, don't think about this lighting and equipment. Just focus on interacting with the person, because the more you interact with them, the more you kind of like working with them, and try to do different things. Don't kind of, as I said, put them in the spot and just try to take photo of them. Try to do different things, and then you see what things works, what doesn't. Also, I could do another vlog and another kind of conversation with you guys talking about it. So maybe we can plan it. But the one thing what I would like to highly recommend it is to pretty much just changing the person, interacting with them, chatting with them. Don't kind of like, just keep silent and just do your photos. Make sure there is some kind of connection with you and the person, and then you will see they will start kind of doing things naturally, and then you can kind of capture this. The next thing is the eyes connection. So eyes are one of the most important component of basically the headshot, and eyes always tells the story. So whenever you look at someone and you look at the images where you have a headshot, I found that, if the eyes don't have this connection, you just kind of like, you're looking at the image, but it's there, but it's not. But if you have this really, really strong eye connection with the subject, whoever is seeing that image or seeing that headshot automatically get drawn into this. And also, that was something which I never pay attention to. Something was like, hey, just look at me and, like smile or whatever. But then I started working a little bit more into details to how I can get this, kind of proper eye connection with the camera. So what I do typically, I always ask someone to look through the lens like there's something very interesting on the other side, and they do this like a little squint where they kind of focus on the lens, and you can notice that those images automatically kind of looks completely better. Also, I don't know if you guys kind of heard about it, but eyes always tells the story, and also kind of tells you how the person feels. So if someone kind of comes up to you and have the eyes right open like this, like they're terrified, right? So if you have, I've seen those pictures like all the time, like you have the headshot or like politician or real estate, and they're like what the hell, right? Like, and you look at this and you just like, this person is like freaking scared, right? So those are things that are like really funny, but we as a photographers, we know what that means, and we need to kind of make sure the person looks confident, they they have this connection, they have this proper kind of like the eyes, as I said, tells the story that they feel good about themselves, they're not scared, they're not terrified, they want to engage with the photographer, and those images usually are better. People kind of get more interested in them. They're more, I would say, they basically, you can kind of feel something from them, right? So this is something what I would highly recommend it. So that leads me to the next thing. What I would like to talk about it is the face expressions, and this is something which, I'm going to just show you something here. So this is something which I always again didn't pay attention to. I thought face expression is the face expressions till I started studying this whole thing, and this also took me years and years. There's a lot of amazing books about it, and just to kind of give you a little bit of idea how important that is, and also how I can describe this, how big of a difference that kind of makes. So every person, and they that studies after studies, we have, I think, 27 main face expressions, and then we have over 10,000 micro face expressions. So those are the micro face expressions. Those are the ones which we throw in between those main face expressions, and this is how you read someone. How many of you guys, and I'm sure you guys are gonna laugh at this, like you talk to someone and they don't have to talk much, but you kind of can feel it, okay, I'm not kind of connecting with that person, and this is because that's their face basically send you the signals. They don't want to, I don't know, interact with you, or they don't want to talk to you, or their mind is someone else, and your subconscious is picking this whole thing up and tells you, your body, like, okay, this person is not about you. Back in the days, this is kind of ancient world, this is how the human kind of race was, kind of like raising. People didn't speak to themselves. They have to basically read of their body language, they have to read of their face expressions, and that's how they communicate. And this whole thing is still in us, but we don't really pay attention to it, right? And headshot photography, I found, taught me that this is so important, because the face expression sends the message to the viewer. And sometimes how many images you guys seen in your life where everything was perfect, the lighting was great, the person looks good, and then it's just like doesn't click, like there's something there which you just don't like, and you really don't know what it is, but you don't like the image for some reason. And this is the face expression, and this is something which the person sends to you, and you read this, you don't understand it, but your body is telling you, like, hey, you know what, there's something wrong, right? So what I would like to kind of help you guys out, there's a book called Captivate. It's written by Vanessa Van Edwards, and this entire book is basically dedicated to face expressions. So you can kind of go through it. Is my kind of little Bible, which I actually read constantly and learn a lot of it. She also have a YouTube channel which you guys can also access. She's got tons of stuff as well. But this is something which this book tells you million things about how to read face expressions, how to kind of create them, how to interact with people, and how to read them, right? Because also, how many of you guys have photo shoots where someone comes in for, let's say, portrait session, it's like, and you just like, hey, how are you feeling? And they're like, yeah, you're great, I'm great, I'm doing fine, and their body is just telling, like, no, there is some shit going on, and you can sense this, right? So this also kind of teaches you how to read if people have issues, or they have some problems, or they have some things which kind of they don't want to tell you, but their body is telling you those things, right? So this book really helps you to read someone else's emotions and feelings and stuff like that, and then you can kind of take them away from that and kind of replace them with something which kind of sends the positive message to the viewer. Or if you're taking photo, you're going to have this right face expression, right? So this is something what I highly recommend it to dive into it a little bit more, because that's also is going to take your images to another level. And again, as soon as I start studying this whole thing, I started understanding this whole thing. As soon as I actually have a little better I would say I knew what I'm looking for when it comes to creating those specific face expressions. I also noticed that my images got a little bit better, and people were getting better response from them, right? So they and like, hey, I really like this image, and I know it's not the lighting, it's not the background, it's not all this, it's the face expression which makes the image interesting. So I want to kind of share with you guys one of the kind of little tip what you guys can do with your clients, and do like a little exercise with them to kind of help you to kind of relax them a little bit better. So what I do on every session before I even kick in this whole thing, so first of all, you need to kind of figure out who you're shooting with, right? Because there's different people, you have to have different approaches, a different story when you're shooting, for example, with the CEO of the company, and it's like a different when you're shooting with the real estate agent or a model or whatever. But always what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to kind of relax them, but doing like funny faces. So basically you're telling them, hey, you know, like, I'm not going to take photos of this, but let's kind of start doing some kind of crazy faces. You can put the tongue out, you can smile, you can do, I don't know, blowfish. You can just kind of, you're trying to kind of take them through the process so they can face muscles kind of relax a little bit. And then as soon as they start doing like a silly things, I found that relaxed them big time, and that kind of helps them to, I would say, you know, kind of get into this mode where they can create those proper face expression. And as soon as you will take their mind that, you know, they don't have to be serious, they don't have to be like official and all this, you know, things, I found those session also kind of you know, looks better. And the last thing what I want to actually touch about is, and then again, we could do another 2 hours, I would say, session, and I could talk about it. But the one thing what I always share with people, and this is something what I hope is going to help you big time with your headshots or portraits, because we always looking for those smiley photos, right? Like we want to make sure that people are smiling, or they, you know, they show their teeth. But most of the time what happens is like we're getting this awkward faces where people forcing their smiles, and you can sense this from the miles. Like I can show you 2 pictures with, you know, someone who is laughing naturally or someone who is like forcing the smile. So one of the tip what I always tell people, never say to someone, hey, can you smile? Because that's what kind of triggers them. They try to do this. It's not like it's coming naturally from their heart or from them. Like they trying to do these things, right? So instead telling people, can you smile? Try to kind of create an atmosphere, or try to talk to them about something which is going to put a smile on their face, right? So usually what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to kind of start navigating the conversation into, I would say, things which they're happy about it. And as soon as you sense that, like, hey, can you tell me, let's say, about your last vacation, right? And they start telling you, and they're like, hey, we had this story, and they like, you know, you can see they're like light up on their face, and then drag into this, right? And so what happened, right? And then like, yeah, you know, like, I don't know, my husband fell into the water, or like any other whatever happened. And you can see like I automatically, like, their face started kind of like lighting up, and they start smiling, and you know, you can see this is like, you just make them giggle or whatever. But you have to be ready with your camera, right? So as soon as you kind of catch this, okay, this is the moment you're ready to go, then you pretty much just have to kind of like make sure, okay, I'm gonna stick, because it's not gonna last forever, but you have this moment that this person is in this like mental state where they feel good about themselves. They, you know, they bring them some memories, brings them something positive, and they start naturally smiling, and then you just start capturing those shots. So this is the kind of way you work with your clients, right? You're creating the atmosphere, you're talking to them about things which, you know, kind of put them in the specific mood which you're going after, and then you're trying to kind of capture. And also don't limit the clients with the time, because this is something what I've learned. If you tell like, hey, I have 30 minutes to do this shoot, and I know, sorry, I hope you guys are not going to get offended, I know in India the timing is the one thing where people are like, hey, time, you know, we have 10 minutes, hurry up, you know, let's do it. So, you know, this is something with headshots doesn't work much, because, you know, you putting this additional stress in their head that we have to finish, and they start forcing things, and then you basically creating this unnecessary stress for the client, who pretty much just create tension, and they start kind of doing this like intense phase, and they like they stressed, and camera picks all this stuff up, right? Like that's the thing. So usually what I'm trying to do, I'm kind of removing everything such as cell phones and timing, and even though I have about an hour to do the headshot session, I still don't kind of like, if I'm going to go 10 minutes over, like it's not going to be big of a deal. But I just want to make sure that the client is not thinking that, hey, you know what, we need to kind of get this done right away because, like I'm on the time. I know it's a different story when people have studios and they have like, time slots for the shoots, but I would still make sure that there's no that type of pressure when it comes to the timing, right? So, okay, so we talk about a face expression. So the backgrounds, you guys probably can see on my website what I do. I do a million things. I'm experimenting big time with a lot of things, tin foil, bottles, you just whatever cheap I can find to create and throw in the background and create some interesting patterns. I do it. I use projectors. I do tons of other stuff. But I would highly recommend that we can do another session and we can talk specifically about this stuff, because this topic is just so long that it's something that but again, so one thing what I would like to share with this is because we shooting with the 200 mil or 160 mil, you're compressing the background so you can make any location looks pretty, right? As long as you have some patterns, you have some colors, you have something which kind of creates something interesting, you can kind of use it, right? So with the headshots, there's two type of like main headshots. It's like the regular ones where you have solid background. This is more, I can show you on my, hold on, this is my page. So the business headshots, right, where you have like a solid background, and then also you can create something more interesting, more artsy, so where you have some colors and you have some patterns, right? So this, for example, that was building on the background, right? So it's pretty, the sky is the limit when it comes to the backgrounds. The more you try new things, then kind of looks better. Then you can go into creative stuff, and then you can use flowers. You can use, okay, I'm gonna go through some of them. Flower backgrounds, and I know in India you guys are like unlimited when it comes to having amazing flower designs, and like when I was there, I was just like blown away how amazing stuff you guys there, which technically could be used for backgrounds, right? So you can use, for example, in this case, this is painting. So basically painting of the wall I use as a background. This one was shoot with projector, so I had like a projector shooting image on the wall, and that was the reflection. Another flower background, painting again. There's tin foil, which is just crumble, and you can add some color gels, which I should talk about it. This is projector. So yeah, so there's tons of stuff. This one I was using, believe it or not, it was like a Christmas tree ornaments, like those little ornaments. So I had like bunch of them on the background. This is the kind of stuff what I got. Yeah, there's another. Yeah, so the sky is the limit. If you guys go to my Instagram account, every pretty much picture for the last 2 years, you guys can see what kind of backgrounds I use. I always do those behind the scenes images so people can see what I use. Okay, so the framing, you guys probably see how I frame my images. This is something which I'm not going to kind of spend too much time. Everyone kind of has own style, and you guys can pretty much, just kind of create the kind of type of framing you guys can do, which gonna kind of, I don't know, fit your style and stuff like that. So this is kind of like really easy thing. I know there's a big discussion. I'm going to stop here for a second about cutting the top of the head. I've been getting a lot of kind of, how I can describe this, a lot of hell from a lot of people, that why do you crop the top of the head? I think the most important part is the person's eyes. So if I know I don't know if you guys heard about this photographer Peter Harley. He crops all the heads. and then I know people were just going insane about his stuff. But again, if someone likes it, I don't think in photography there's like specific rules that you have to follow. Like, if you have style which somehow appeals to your clients, that's all what it's matter. Sorry for my language, I don't give a shit if 20 photographers say like I don't like this, whatever, as long as your clients love it, that's all what it's matter. Okay, and the last thing what I want to talk about it is retouching. So this is something which also I could spend hours and hours, but I'm going to kind of briefly touch this. I know there's a lot of discussion that, I want to make sure that my images, they look great straight from the camera. I don't care about retouching. This is bullshit. If you think like this, basically you're gonna be behind everybody else, because retouching is part of our process. I think the tricky part is to retouch the images so people don't see that it was retouched. And the difference is that a lot of people and a lot of photographers treat retouching as if fixing images. I think that's just a misconception, and that's where we kind of getting in the wrong path. Retouching should be about enhancing the images. So you have already good solid foundation, you have like good raw image, which you basically enhance, and you're just removing those little tiny things which they not should be there, or you're just kind of clearing and polishing the image so it kind of has natural look. And when it comes to the fixing the skin and all this stuff, painters were fixing those stuff with paint, we're doing with Photoshop, right? So that's the difference. But I deeply believe that retouching is very essential and it's very important, and we should learn this. Also, I want to say this is going to be very important for a lot of photographers, because there's two ways to approach this. You can send those images to kind of like retouching so someone else can do it, or you can do it yourself, but you have to learn it. And I have to say that as soon as you start learning retouching, you become better photographer, because then you're going to be paying more attention to details. Like you're not going to do the same mistakes, because if you spend hours on retouching some hair through the eye, on the next photo shoot, you're going to remember like, okay, I got to look closer if the person doesn't have, because I don't want to freaking spend hours fixing this, right? So we basically becoming more aware about, retouching and the photo shoot itself. And I have to say that, unfortunately, retouching is something we cannot really learn overnight. It takes time, takes practice. We need to kind of train your eye. So eye is also like a muscle that you start seeing things differently. And I think the sad thing is that like right now, because I do so much retouching, I actually look at someone's face and like I already like, okay, I'm gonna fix this, and before even the shoot starts, like I already know what I'm gonna start fixing on their face, which is just kind of how I can say it, like scary that you're already analyzing someone's face and okay, what needs to be fixed there, right? But I highly recommend it to do that. When it comes to retouching and learning this craft, because this is something which, first of all, is going to take your photography to the next level. But on the top of this, I think your image is going to be better. They're going to look better. You're going to kind of have a little bit of better control over what kind of images you are getting. So learn this, practice. I have amazing tutorial. If you guys interested, I can give you some specific code to get you guys for much better price. But there's almost, I think, 9 hours of my entire retouching process, and it actually helps you go from basically a raw file into this very, very end, how to basically retouch your images. So actually I'll send you guys links so you guys gonna have access. There's all information how this whole thing works and stuff. So spend time, learn, and then hopefully this gonna kind of takes your images to another level. Don't get frustrated, because I know retouching is something where a lot of people like losing their mind, because I think it's like working out. If you go to the gym once, and then you're going to put on yourself, pounds and pounds of, weight, you're going to die the next day, right? But if you're doing this like slowly every day for a whole year, you're going to basically, you're going to get better, right? So retouching is exactly the same thing. Try to practice as much as you can. I have to tell you that at some point I was retouching at least 1 to 2 images a day, every single day for a few years to get this. And at the beginning, I haven't seen results, was just frustrating. And then I went to a bunch of, courses. I took some workshops, and it was funny because I see this guy retouching and it's like, oh my God, it's perfect. And I do the same thing and it just doesn't work, right? So this is the funny part, right? And you're just like, how the hell? It's the same like, some good painters, they would take the brush and, do all these things. And just like, it's easy, right? And then you take the brush and you feel like an idiot, right? Because it just doesn't work. So the same thing it comes to retouching. So the good thing, what I want to say is also, like, I know I was talking about my my retouching tutorial, but there's tons of stuff online. There's a lot of things what you guys can get for free. You guys can learn those things. But I think the main thing is practicing, because this is something what's gonna makes you better. It's like, doesn't matter how many techniques you know, as long as how good you are at them, right? Because that's what's gonna improve your work. So I think that's would kind of conclude everything what I was planning to tell you guys today. We can definitely talk more about specific stuff. We can create, I don't know, or plan another one. We'll see how people are gonna react to this one. I hope you guys liked what I have said. But we can definitely jump into some specific topics and basically focus like on them specifically, so we can go through like very, very specific details. We didn't talk much about the settings. I purposely dropped that because for a couple of reasons. One of them is there's no, I have to say, recipe or blueprint what settings you should use. This whole thing goes based on the locations you are in, based on the person you're shooting, depends on all this ambient light around, the list goes on and on, right? So I'm getting sometimes like very frustrating emails because people read, because I post my settings from my images, and I have these people kind of like calling me I'm a fraud because they tried the same settings and they didn't work. I'm like, of course they didn't work, because you probably shoot somewhere else and then it just doesn't work that way, right? So we can talk about it specifically. There's a few things, but I would probably like kind of leave it the way it is. You guys get a lot of things which you guys probably have to work on at this point. So yeah, I can take some questions for about, I don't know, 10 minutes, and then we can kind of like call this off, and then we can plan another one in the next week or two, whatever works best for you guys.
Sure. Thank you, Rafal. That was a very good session. I mean, you gave a lot of inputs wherein it's something new for us also as wedding photographers. So it's absolutely brilliant. And let's see if people are going to ask you some questions. I think.
Okay.
And we'll just wait for a minute. So there's already one question which has been,
okay.
Yeah.
About BK, I don't know who that is. What do you think about BK headshots and his style of lighting? I never heard about.
I think it's John. It's John Comrell. Actually, he's a celebrity photographer. So if you do not know him, I think we can ignore that question.
Okay, can you send me actually? Yeah, I never. It's from India, or where is this person's from?
I don't know. Actually, even we are not sure. Actually.
Okay, Bjorn Carmel. Okay, I'll try to. Let me take a look here. Bjorn.
Raj, any questions on watch party?
Yeah, I have a question from Sendil Kumaran. I'll just try and post it here. Just a second.
Okay. So we can go back to this question about this other photographer. Well, he shoots celebrities, so like he definitely has amazing work. You know what? As far as the lighting goes, this is kind of like very how can I describe this? Asking about someone else lighting, like this guy knows what he's doing, right? So I there's nothing what I can say. He creates amazing work. But everyone has own style. Everyone kind of has own way of approaching things, right? But this guy is at top notch. Like he does just amazing stuff. So I actually, what, believe it or not, I never heard about him. And thank you for sending this over, because I'm gonna just dive into this because it's like amazing.
Okay, we have one more question.
Okay.
And one more of a comment. So one of our friend is like kind of impressed that you said it to a CEO. So asking a CEO to, and other question from the same person, Senthil Kumaran. Apart from looking through Lens, supposing to have any other tips to share with us.
So kind of going back to this, like CEO pulling the tongue out. So you know what, everything, and I think I mentioned that this is something that you have to kind of see what kind of person you're working with. I work with CEOs, for example, who gave me 2 minutes to do the headshot session. And the way it worked, I had to have people who basically pose for me. I have to set up the lights, everything. There was testing, and then the guy just literally came in with his phone in his hand. He stood up and he gave me 2 minutes to do the shoot because he was so busy. There's no time for interaction. There's no time for anything. Literally, I have to just take the shot. So everything depends who you're working with, and you can find people who are extremely open and they're gonna be doing crazy stuff at the front of you. But there's some people who will do like literally nothing, right? So you have to kind of sense them, and the reason I was giving this tongue out was more to kind of basically relax people, because a lot of people are so stressed out the front of the camera. Because it's different story when you're shooting some candid shots, like for example on the engagement session or the wedding session, where they they don't look at the camera, they look at each other. But this is like straight on, like they're coming to you and they have to look at you face to face. So this is so uncomfortable for people. So that's why you need to, as I said, create some kind of atmosphere to kind of make these people trust you, make those people believe what you do, make them be more, I would say, open. And this is something what I always do. And then look, I'm not telling everybody to stick the tongue out, but if I sense that someone is kind of like easygoing and they want to do some crazy stuff, why don't I kind of push this a little bit further, right? And then try to do things which relax them even more, right? So that was my kind of like my approach. But again, speaking about CEOs, you're gonna run into many different peoples, and then there's some who are very strict, but there's some who they're so easygoing that like I was even shocked, right, that they were running big companies, and then like they've been doing some, and you don't even have to photograph this stuff. Like I'm not saying that you have to just ask them to stick the tongue out and then take the photo. Like you can just kind of like trying to do something funny with them just to kind of make them more relaxed. So that would be kind of my response to that. And what was the next question about? Apart from looking through the lens for posing, do you have any other tips for us to share with? So there's different things what you can do. Like I found, like some people, for example, they're showing the client what kind of stuff they're looking for. So they have these magazine pages where they pretty much just kind of show. There are some other exercises where they asking someone stand at the front of the mirror and kind of show them what their face can do. So I think this thing works differently for each person, right? And then like you have to find a way. But for me, and the kind of like 10 years of shooting headshots, I found this looking through the lens and focusing on something was giving me the best results. And that was the main thing I was this is what I want to share this with you, because I know this is kind of the easiest way and also the most effective way to get this specific look. Because if people have to focus on something, they automatically try to kind of engage, right? So that's something which kind of was giving me the results I was looking for. Because sometimes what happens, like if you kind of put the person at the front of the camera and you're not interacting with them, you're not telling them to focus on something, their mind goes away. And then you have image of someone is looking at you, but you can see their head and their eyes are like somewhere else. And I see a lot of those photos out there, right? Especially the headshots, where you see the person is not there. Their mind is actually, I don't know, thinking about some other issues. And that's also the way the human beings are working. Like, we all talk to each other all the time, right? We always analyzing things, we always discussing things in our head. And then if you don't have this interaction with the photographer, usually what happens is like you start thinking about your own shit, and then your mind goes away, right? So that's why the way I'm kind of engaging with the person, and kind of being kind of mentally kind of connected with them throughout a photo shoot is extremely important. So that's what kind of gives me the best results.
Okay.
So is there any other questions?
So, Rafael, I have there is another question. Like, if you're okay taking questions, right, or you want to wrap it up? If you want to wrap it up, you can let us know. Yeah, Rafael, I have a question from my end. So basically, when it comes to, like, you have shown your work, and then it's like the backgrounds, the wardrobe, everything looks very amazing. Like, do you follow a specific process in order to style the shoots? Actually, what color of the background, what type of background, or the clients come asking for it, or you yourself suggest it for, depending upon a client actually? You're on mute, Rafael. You're on mute. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
You're.
when it comes to those types of uploads, there's two different ways. One of them is there's creative photo shoots where I'm in charge for everything, and this is the time where I'm playing with different backgrounds, different colors. This is basically on me, right? And this is the time also, with the photography, sometimes we just don't know what's going to work, right? You just, I would say, experimenting, and then you hoping, get the best results. Now, when you have more experience, you know what works, what doesn't work. And again, we could spend another, I would say, hour talking about it. But I deeply believe that, like, experimenting is such an important and crucial part of, creating those interesting backgrounds, because that's where not only you'll learn, but I always think that one idea leads you to another idea. So you have one idea works, and then, okay, what I can do to improve this or add some component to it to kind of make this even better. So this is the first kind of creative part. So I'm deciding, I'm trying new things, I'm kind of experimenting. As you guys probably I show you one kind of little example where you can kind of paint your own background and stuff like that, and see what happens, right? So the second thing is, then you have two types of clients. One of them who leaves me everything up to me. They want to kind of like, hey, you do your thing. I don't care. I trust you. Create something different. Create something unique. And the same kind of process. I'm trying to kind of do different things. Usually with those type of clients, I'm trying to do things which I already done, and I know they will work, right? Because I don't want to kind of put clients on the edge and like, hey, do something which they might don't like. There's some of them which trust me like 100%, and they will pay for it. There's no problem. But usually I'm trying to be more careful. So in creating something which I know, they're going to be happy with, right? And there's, I would say, a third part of clients which they exactly know what they want, right? So I found those corporate stuff, some of them, they want to just regular white or black or gray background, and this is it, right? So I'm following their lead, right? So whatever they're looking for, I'm kind of try to and I know there's a lot of requirements from some of those businesses. So they're giving me the list. Okay, it has to be gray background, whatever, this kind of outfit, this type of makeup. So the client gets requirements from their business, what kind of headshot they need to get, right? So yeah, so that would be pretty much the way actually how I approach this whole thing. But it's always too cool to have the kind of ability to kind of be more creative. I'm all for it all the time. I know this is something which a lot of people are scared and they don't want to kind of go that path, but I actually few years ago started, creating those creative headshots, and that's how my business took off, right? Because that's people getting attracted to, because it's different, it's unique, it's something nobody's seen before, right? So, okay, so there's another question, right? Why do you choose this style headset after promoting photography of nature, landscape, and specific reasons? So, I still like to work with people. I think, weddings, they give me that kind of like, I don't know, like I really love work with people. That's something which was always kind of fascinating for me. Weddings are more chaotic, I found, and you don't really have time to be one on one with someone. You can take couple for photo shoot, whatever, but most of the time it's a chaos, right? You're just running after people and try to photograph them. In headshot photography, it's kind of opposite. You vary in the kind of personal zone with them, right? You need to learn about them. You need to figure them out. You need to kind of find their, like, what kind of mood they are in, and what kind of how they photograph. What works for them, what doesn't. So what really fascinates me with this is that each person is different, and you just like you jump into the new wedding, right? So that's why I'm kind of fascinated. Plus, it's I know I'm repeating myself, but also it's not only about the lighting. It's not about equipment, right? It is, as you guys probably noticed today, it's way more into this. And then when I started discovering those things, I found that's what kind of hooked me even more, because there is still so much to learn. And the thing also, what I'm kind of fascinated right now, like, I like to share this stuff with people, because majority of us, they don't really pay attention to those other components. It's all, the gear, and we're getting this massive, I would say, how I can describe this. Those companies, they like, I know, like, someone from Nikon and Canon or Sony will see this, is gonna probably shoot me in the head, but they put this in our heads, right? Like, that's what we should focus on. And I think as soon as they start kind of helping people to understand this entire process, that's when this photography is going to take off, because people, they're going to have those tools, and they're already amazing tools already, but they're gonna see the big picture, what they can do and how they can create stuff. And the photography is gonna get better. Like, even if you look for the last 10 years, how photography evolved, like, it's just amazing. The stuff what people do nowadays, like back in the days, like, who could do it? There's, like, just a handful people who have some knowledge, or they have some access to those things. But nowadays, like, you can get this freaking iPhone, and then you can create stuff that's going to blow people's minds, right? So that's what I think is amazing about photography, that it's growing. We're getting more and more creative. We're creating art. I even actually, as a kind of closure to this, I'm going to tell you, like, a little story, which was big shocker for me, but also, like, kind of just changed my mind about photography. I had students in States who were coming to my workshops, and they were like big CEOs of big companies, and they told me that they treat photography as some kind of um, hobby, which takes them away from their, like, regular job and makes them more relaxed. They can do creative stuff, they can create what makes them happy. And I was just like, I never thought about it, that photography and art itself can kind of put you in such an amazing mood, right? Like, what is better? Like, even shooting weddings, you can have beautiful couple, beautiful scenery, you're creating some stunning images. Like, it just makes your life better, right? So that's what I also learned, that we can also create photography, and not typically headshots, but just photography in generally. That this is some form of kind of, I don't know, our relaxation, something which going to heal us from all this craziness which is happening, right? And I know, everyone has a different approach. Some people love to shoot landscapes, right? This is also amazing. You go into the nature, you kind of connecting with it. You kind of creating something which, memories from those moments. So I like headshots because it's I like to work with people, but if maybe have a different personality, maybe I would love and try to do some kind of, like, I don't know, landscape and other stuff. Thank you, I appreciate it. There's some comment, I guess.
I think we are done with questions. One person has specifically asked on retouching, but I think that was already covered. So if you guys are really looking to learn more in depth about his retouching, you can might as well go to his website, and he has lots of tutorial which you can download it from. If someone is willing to buy, you can just let us know so that we can get some sort of special from Rafal.
Yes. So there is.
I think that's about it. So if you have. Rafal, I think that's about it. And if you have the time, if you can just deconstruct one of your favorite image, like what was the thought process into it, and what sort of lighting you have used. One particular image.
Sorry, say it again.
So if you he would like you to deconstruct one image, which is your favorite image, like how did you think and how did you get the entire setup, if you have to.
Sure. Okay. So I'll send that over. Is that okay?
I'm sorry?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
No, he wants you to show your favorite image and let us know about the thought process behind it, the lighting technique used, just like a summary of that particular entire.
Oh, right now.
Get it down.
So you know what? I think we're going to leave this for the next one because there's so much into it in one image that I could talk for another hour. So why don't we do this for the next one, and then maybe what we can do is people can go to my website and they can see which image they like the most, and we can kind of pick the one they like, and then we can kind of go through it. And I'm going to break this whole thing to small parts, and we're going to discuss every detail.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds good. Awesome. I think you need to read this though.
Okay. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate all the feedback.
So you made us silent.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'll let you talk next time.
Yeah, sure. No, actually, there was no question to ask. It was completely detailed and to the point. So, like,
you listening to it. Cameras,
years of experience,
boxes, and everything was covered in detail. So I think there shouldn't be much questions going on. So Rafal, we are extremely glad to have you here, and we felt really happy. So that people who are watching this, like mostly wedding photographers, they get it to a point like you don't need an expensive strobes to create amazing pictures. All you need is simple speed lights to get the things done. Yeah, so that's a good thing. So I think I'm going to end this broadcast so you guys can stay here. We can have a quick chit chat after this. So thank you guys. Have a great evening. So we'll meet you with a different session. நாளைக்கு ஒரு நல்ல செஷன் இருக்கு. மக்கள் யாரெல்லாம் பாக்குறீங்களோ நாளைக்கு V2K போட்டோகிராஃபி வினோத் வருவாரு செஷனுக்கு. ஸோ அப்ராட்ல வெட்டிங்ஸ் எப்படி எடுக்கிறோன்றத பத்தி டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ண போறோம். ஸோ நாளைக்கும் stay tuned at 8 PM. We'll meet you guys again. So thank you all.